It's really a question of how relevant Vivekananda's message is today. And in a certain sense, unfortunately, it's more relevant than ever. And especially here, we're sitting in New York. This is 9/11 means something. I mean, I wasn't there when it happened here, but everybody who was there at that time, they remember that day, 9/11, who was here in New York on that day. So Swami Vivekananda's speech was also 9/11. I think one 9/11 in the past holds the solution to this 9/11. That's the relevance. Religion, in Vivekananda's words, has often been, very unfortunately, the source of violence, division, hatred, kind of amplifying our tribal instincts in the worst possible way. But religion also has the solution. And that's the solution which Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, they stood for. That there is a common, highest common message in all of these religions, which needs to be stressed, so that we can all live in harmony. Not a harmony of disbelief in everything. I don't believe in anything, so it's fine whatever you do. That's one kind of harmony. Or the harmony of uniformity. I dream of converting everyone to my faith, and which will never happen. But a harmony of difference. And that's what Vivekananda talked about. Vedanta sees the same divinity in all beings. But this, the stress on inclusion, women, people of all castes in India, all races here in America, this was uniquely Swami Vivekananda's message, building on his Vedantic base. In India, he went back and said that the two great national sins of India were the neglect of the women and the oppression of the masses. And this is part of his message. Notice, often people say he said brothers and sisters of America. Actually, he didn't. He said sisters and brothers of America. And that was, and he did that deliberately throughout his life. One of the big issues in those days in India, when he went back to India, was whether widows should be allowed to remarry or not. And there was this orthodox section of society which said, no, it's a sin. And there was this reformist section which said, yes, they should be allowed to remarry. And when they asked him, and this was unique about Vivekananda, what do you think, where do you stand on the widow remarriage issue? He said, am I a widow? Why are you asking me? People were taken aback. Either you are for it or against it. And then he gives an answer which is startling, which didn't seem obvious at that time. He says, no, what I want is girls should be given the same education and the freedom as the boys, and they should decide. So that's amazing. That's something, all the solutions were coming from men. Some men were saying that they shouldn't be allowed to remarry. Some men were saying they should be allowed to remarry. Nobody asked the women. If you did ask the woman would have said, first of all, I'll decide. Right? So this is what Vivekananda saw, both here and there. Here also, he acknowledged his tremendous debt to women in America. Women in general, you would have noticed those women we talked about in the film. They were, Vivekananda notes that the men are busy earning dollars. And it's the women who uphold culture. They read, they support art, they support religion. So it was not really all that surprising. There was many of them who came to listen to him, had already read about Hinduism, about philosophy. But they took to this very fresh presentation of religion and philosophy which Vivekananda represented. Vivekananda did two things. One here in the West, which the film talks about, and also which the film touches upon, what he did back in India. The first thing he did was he built a bridge between the East and the West, across which traveled India's accumulated spiritual heritage of maybe 5,000 years of development of spirituality in India. And from Vivekananda was the pioneer. But after Vivekananda, last 100 plus years, any number of yogis and swamis and philosophers, they have traveled and transferred that knowledge on the bridge that Vivekananda built. So that was one thing. And that had a tremendous effect on the culture also, a silent effect, like he said. It takes a little bit of analysis to discover it, Phil Goldberg in his book, American Veda, has a chapter. The Swamis taught the smart guys, and the smart guys taught the rest of us. And he refers to
Is that still your strategy? Always for him.
Raja actually talks about them. Christopher Isherwood, Aldous Huxley, Gerald Hurd, J.D. Salinger, right here in New York, Joseph Campbell, and then its effects on popular culture. And of course, on the other side of the world, in India, he awakened his motherland to a sense of nationhood and pride, which would then flow into the freedom movement and eventual freedom from the British. Professor Jeffrey Long, he came to give a talk in the Vedanta Society. He wanted to speak about the influence of Vedanta on George Lucas and Star Wars. So we titled the talk the Yoga of Yoda. The Yoga of Yoda. But since this is about Vivekananda, I can do no better than suggest Vivekananda's works. So the famous four yogas, the book Karma Yoga and the book Raja Yoga were actually published from New York, from the New York Vedanta Society. Salinger, J.D. Salinger, he writes that our American youth would do well to carry these two little classics around in their pockets, Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga. He writes about that, yes. So Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. The four yogas, they're separate books, also available in a single volume. There's a wonderful modern introduction to Vedanta in all its phases. And the beauty of Vivekananda is, it's an inspiring introduction. It's informative. It's intellectually stimulating, but it's also inspiring. It really shakes you up and makes you want to incorporate all of that in your life. It's such a simple definition of religion, and I think lots of kids in India used to memorize it, but it's such a simple, direct and powerful definition of what spirituality is, the core of religion. That each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity which is already within us. And then how you do it? You can do it through meditation, you can do it through devotion, you can do it through philosophy, he says the path of knowledge, through service, by one or more or all of this, and be free. And that, he says, is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. They're tremendous, simple, powerful, and the more you go into it, it covers everything, and it's so deep.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Actually, I got a demonstration of that. There was this team in UT Austin, a computer science department, postgraduate team, which made a Sarvapriyananda AI. And they demonstrated it to me and said, you can ask any question. And when I asked Vedanta questions to that AI, it gave beautiful answers and also pointed out to me, they had fed it 1,000 hours of my talks. So he pointed out to me where exactly I had said that. And then it has a wider access to the whole of the net. So it supplements it with lots of other sources, and it gives better answers than I could ever do. And it's consistent. So yes, something like AI will open up 24-hour access to this information. And it'll be intelligent retrieval, and people can ask targeted questions and get relevant answers, informed answers. So that's great. I'm all for it. Where does that leave me? With lots of extra time, I hope. But you know, especially for something like this, for example, Vedanta. There is something that's transmitted from a live teacher. May not be so easy over YouTube, but in person, you know, and it's not just Vedanta, it could be something very subtle like philosophy, or even almost just about any subject at the cutting edge. It's something about a live person, maybe the non-verbal cues which you get. I remember this professor at Harvard, he teaches Wittgenstein, he's the senior most professor there. And he is hardly on his, the web page which they use for grades and assignments. He always says to the class, come to class, sit here, listen to me, look at me, then you'll get it. So that's, I think, one corner, one niche, which I hope still to occupy for a while. Right. But yes, it's useful. So here are 3 answers to your questions very quickly and 1 observation. 3 answers are that once you have come into this path, once you have tasted it, there's nothing better. This is everybody Amen. Who's on the spiritual path, whichever religion you are, you're a spiritual seeker, this is the most valuable thing in our lives. There's nothing better, nothing higher than that. That's one. Second, it's not easy, but success is guaranteed on this path. Success is guaranteed. Nobody is a loser on this path. And third, it's not all or nothing. As we go on this path, day to day we get strength and peace and meaning in life. And so this path it's the best thing in the world. It's the highest thing that every civilization in every age has come up with. Spirituality, I mean. So these are the 3 points I wanted to say in response to your question about it being difficult. And the observation is this. Notice, I was listening very carefully to what you said. You are now worried about the mind, right? Why am I judgmental? I meditated. Why am I judgmental about other people? I shouldn't have been. That's already progress. Usually we are worried about, why did that person say this? Why did that person do that? From there, I am now worried about not so much why that person said this or did that, but why is my mind not being serene? Why is my mind judgmental? That movement back from the judging other people to judging my own mind and reactions, that's already spiritual progress. That's great, actually. Yeah. I mean, I remember, and many of us will recall this, we are spiritual seekers. Many of us started young. I started young. I started at high school. So there will be kids who will be very interested and will take it up. Vivekananda's answer to this was very direct. He said, teach it to children for they can understand. But remember, when you teach it to children, we don't have to preach. It's not transmitting a doctrine or a religion. Rather, here I will quote Dr. Radhakrishnan, Sarvapriyananda. He said, religion can be taught in schools and colleges, but it should be the highest, most liberal and universal and spiritual values of all religions, which can be transmitted to children. And Vivekananda was very clear. He says even young children can understand it. He in fact says they can understand it. Probably emphasizing in many ways they are less complicated than us, more direct than us. And these ideas are subtle but very simple, and they can be caught on by children. It's a great idea to transmit this to children. I think the most precious thing that we have is our attention. What we are thinking about and how much attention we are paying to it. I think it was Milton who said, the mind in its own place can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. And another important, some well-known psychologist, maybe Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he says the quality of our life depends on what we attend to and how much we attend to that. And right now, as you said, there is a fight going on at a very subtle level. The fight, what's called the attention economy. So Silicon Valley is out to grab our attention because it's directly connected to, I think, advertising money or something like that. I mean, that's a very
It's all about the light.
that's a very New York thing also. Yes, it's out there and it's almost unstoppable. But we have to protect ourselves and children. Cal Newport in his book Deep Work, he says the value of attention is even more now because we already have a lot of scattered attention. So those who can pay attention and can focus on their work, they will produce what he calls deep work, and that will be maximally valued in this new economy. So all the way back, Swami Vivekananda, you can't call him a prophet of attention because he said the difference between an ordinary person and a great person lies in the degree of concentration. He gave tremendous importance to the power of concentration of mind. He said, if I were to do my education all over again, he said, I wouldn't read all these books. I would develop my power of attention, the power of concentrating on something and then pulling out attachment and detachment. That's what he said. The ability to attach something and then pull out from that and again focus tremendously on another thing. I was to think that, is that all the difference between, one person and another, just the degree of attention? Then I read a piece about, what was his name? Von Neumann, the great physicist. And it was an autobiographical piece. And it said, von Neumann was probably as great as Einstein in the 20th century physics. He had this tremendous conviction he could crack any problem by the sheer power of his concentration. This is another person who agrees. Anybody who's achieved anything in any field, filmmaking included, surgery included, you can say that this is all a matter of focus and sustained focus. And if you interfere with that, you're taking away the greatest superpower that our children have, the power of attention.